it was one of the biggest media stories of our time in Boston, the trial of marathon bomber Jahar Tsarnaev. And we learned today it is not over yet. A federal appeals court has thrown out Tsarnaev's death sentence and ordered a new trial to determine what his punishment should be. It's a story I'm sure we'll be talking about more here in future weeks, but for now, to one of the biggest stories of this week, as yet another of President Trump's tweets managed to take over much of the news cycle after he declared, with universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Many in the press quickly dismiss that as impossible, but is brushing this one off the right way to go? Dan Kennedy, I want to start with you because you and I have gone back and forth before, I think on social media, not face-to-face, not on TV, about whether a scenario that I've been fascinated by for a long time, and I think is quite likely, that the president would, if he loses on election night, say that the results are not trustworthy and he doesn't accept them. I think that that's an important story to be looking ahead to. You've been more skeptical. What's your take on how we should cover this, in which we have the president essentially saying before the fact that he's not going to accept the results on election night if things proceed the way they're going?
Well, first of all, the only thing that I've disagreed with you about is the idea that he wouldn't leave on January 20th if in fact he is determined to be the loser. But I think this is a very big and important story. I was really surprised when, after President Trump put up this tweet, to see a number of people on Twitter saying, oh, this is another distraction for the media. They shouldn't be paying attention to this. He's just trying to divert attention from the cratering of the economy. No, I think this is a very big deal. Obviously, we know that he can't actually delay the date of the election. But it's all part of this smokescreen he's putting up, casting doubt on mail-in ballots, interfering with the post office so that it pretty much guarantees that the mail-in vote won't go well. All of this is his attempt to delegitimize the election at a point in which he's substantially behind former Vice President Joe Biden.
It's a real challenge.
Thank you for, sorry, Joanna, I had to thank Dan for setting me straight on live TV. I'm embarrassed that I had misunderstood what we disagreed about up until now. Joanna, go ahead.
I love how much you guys agree on things. I think I disagree with you a little bit, Dan. I think that it's a real challenge for the media to figure out how to cover Trump's tweets, and has been historically. They tend to treat the media tends to treat the tweets as official pronouncements, which makes sense. They are coming from the president. They are, though, I think, very often diversionary tactics, and I think he uses them quite cannily. I don't know whether it's reflexive or deviously brilliant, but he uses them often to change the narrative or create the narrative. And I think what is happening with this tweet, that he floats a trial balloon. The answer is obviously no. That's very easy to report. He can't do this. No, it's unconstitutional. The problem is that then the conversation becomes, and I think he knows this is happening, are mail-in ballots okay? He finds a way to change the construct of the conversation so that he's sowing doubt in the public. And by covering it so breathlessly, I think everyone's playing into his hands, and that's the problem.
I agree that's a problem. I think it's nothing more than a transparent attempt on his part to, at this point, write the narrative that if he loses, the election was rigged and fraudulent. I think that overshadows a story we should be covering at this point. And I think there are real questions, not whether mail-in voting is fraudulent, you can rig an election, but I think New York and Pennsylvania have shown questions about people failing in their request for ballots, about mailing a ballot in, about making mistakes on ballots, all of these things leading to later on delays in results. And I think that is the danger here. I think we should be doing our public service and informing people about mail-in ballot and early voting where it is available. And I think that's highly important so that we reduce the possibility of results being delayed in the presidential election. I think there is a possibility of that happening. And if it does, I think it plays right into Donald Trump's hands because he can use that time to call the result fraudulent and rigged. I think we should be aiming for a quick resolution to the election and not delay it at all.
So I want to just challenge all of you who said, obviously, we know he can't do that. Well, we know as journalists, but the rest of everybody he's talking to, which is not us, do not know that. So when he came out and said, I'm going to shut down everybody in the states that doesn't open the school, those governors, I'm going to tell them I'm going to do that, he couldn't do that either. He has no power to do that. And yet we got to that point about the third graph in, or if you're on television, about 1 minute into the conversation after we've said what he said. So it's not registering with a lot of people that actually he does not have the power. Actually, it is unconstitutional. I think we should change the framework. So the framework should be not what he said, but the context that we should begin with, which is saying he has no evidence for what I'm about to tell you. Now, it's unconstitutional. He said this. So the context is completely flipped. Because right now we just keep repeating, which plays right in his hands. And then people don't hear it's unconstitutional. He can't do it. So that's one thing I'm concerned about. And with regard to what Mike said, it's important to raise all of the issues about mail-in balloting that are critical for everybody to know. But I think we should be doing stories that in this time, it's going to be unusual about how we vote, and so not delaying, but taking some time to count it is going to be what's normal this time. We're not going to know at the end of the night, and that's okay.
That's a good point.
So we just need to make sure that people say that doesn't delegitimize the results. It just means it takes longer to count to make sure we have an accurate count. That's
I have an uneasy feeling that we're going to be talking about this more in the months ahead.